Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing fine. Well, here I am, the English teacher, with the first lesson of class 9 from the book Treasure Trove. And the name of the poem is The Heart of the Tree. Now, before we begin, ask yourself these questions and keep the answers ready with you. What is the role of a heart in both humans and plants? How does having a heart that thinks about others brings a change in lives? Let us know a little more about the poet. The name of the poet is Henry Kaila Bana. He was an American novelist, journalist, and poet. He wrote on a simple topic like trees to reiterate the importance of planting a tree and the importance of a planter. So let's start with the first stanza. Now, the first stanza begins with a question. But let me remind you, the poet doesn't wait for the others to answer. Rather, he answers it himself. He says, what does he plant who plants a tree? So, this kind of a literary device is called hypophora, where the poet begins with a question and answers it himself. What does he plant who plants a tree? So, the answers that he gives are, he plants a friend of sun and sky. Well, you may wonder how. Firstly, in the presence of trees, the sun becomes friendly. Secondly, trees purify the environment, they make it clean. Thirdly, trees prepare their food in the presence of sun and air. Now, these are the three reasons why the poet says that he who plants a tree also plants a friend of sun and sky. Now, let us move to the next line. He plants the flag of breezes free. Flag here means banner. Now, when you look at the trees, what brings cool breeze around? It is the leafy branch, isn't it? Now, let's imagine. Close your eyes and think about sitting in a park. Soft breeze blowing, wind rustling, the entire place giving you positive vibes. Isn't it? Didn't you feel the positivity around? So, this positivity was brought to you by the trees, by the leafy branches of the trees. Now, that is what he's trying to say. He who plants the tree also plants flag of breezes free. Now, don't forget, flag has been compared to leafy branches, which is here a metaphor. Now, let us move to the next line. The shaft of beauty towering high. Shaft is compared to the stem of the tree. Now, here shaft means pole. As the tree grows, it looks like a beautiful tower touching the sky. It gives us a glimpse of a glorious act as we are looking up to something. When you look at the tree, you feel as if the tree is almost there near the heaven, or rather, it's touching the heaven because of its height. So, that is what the poet is trying to say here. The shaft of beauty towering high. He plants a home to heaven and I for song and mother croon of bird in hushed and happy twilight heard, the treble of heaven's harmony. The planter who plants a tree also plants a home for the birds. Now, when you are planting a sapling, the sapling is bound to turn into a tree. After that, what are you doing? You are providing a space to the birds to build their nests. Now, the birds choose the topmost branch to make their nest, isn't it? Now, once the nest is built, when you look at the tree, when you look up to the tree, what do you see? The nest is almost close to the heaven, almost close to the sky. So, the nest that is built gives you a feeling that the birds are there, the birds of heaven. And in the evening, when it is dusk, what happens when everything is quiet? There is no horn honking, there is no sound of any vehicle or any chattering. We are able to hear the melody of the birds, the beautiful chirp of the birds, which gives you a feeling of almost close to heaven. So, that is what the poet is trying to say here. The planter plants a home for the birds. The nest being built on the topmost branch is close to the heaven. The mother bird in the dusk chirps to the younger ones, which sounds like a beautiful song close to the music of the heaven. He plants a home which is nothing short of heaven. Heaven and I is nothing short of heaven for the birds. The mother bird sings to the young ones in hushed, silent, and happy evening hours. Treble is nothing but high voice. Okay, so here treble represents the song of the mother bird, the chirp of the mother bird, because now the nest is so closely built, like it's so close to the heaven, that it gives the listeners a feeling that the chirp that is coming from the birds is almost like the heaven's melody. Okay. Now, at the end, the poet says, these are the things that he plants who plants a tree. Now, let us quickly go through the figures of speech. Now, this particular stanza has one hyperphora in the beginning, where he says, what does he plant who plants a tree, which is a rhetorical question, and he answers it himself. Second, we have metaphor. 1. Flag is compared to leafy branches. 2. Shaft is compared to the stem. 3. Alliteration, hushed and happy. Then fourth, we have a metonymy here. Metonymy here we have heaven, which represents sky, and treble, which represents song of the mother bird. Well, I hope stanza 1 was clear to everyone. Now let us move to stanza 2. Now the poet begins with the same question. He asks, what does he plant who plants a tree? And I hope by now you know that this particular literary device or figure of speech is called hyperphora. Now let us look at the answers that he gives. He plants cool shade and tender rain. So the person who plants a tree also plants cool shelter or shade and gentle rain. We all know that trees are instrumental in bringing rain, isn't it? Now we are going to discuss two scientific processes. One is transpiration and the other one is idea of regeneration, but in a very poetic way. Now let us see. Now let us talk about a seed. Now a seed turns into a sapling, then it grows into a tree, and finally the trees wither, they die. But do they just leave the earth? No. Even after they die, they provide us with seeds, and these seeds then again give rise to new trees, and the cycle of life goes on and on like this. So this is the idea of regeneration. Let us repeat. So the trees will bear seeds, isn't it? Now the trees, there will be a time when the trees will wither and they will die, but even after their death, these seeds from the trees will give rise to new trees, and here the cycle of life and death will go on and on. So even after their death, the trees keep benefiting the humankind. Now the second process is transpiration. We all know that how transpiration helps in formation of rain. Now let us move to the third line. And seed and bud of days to be. So what is days to be? Days to be is future days, isn't it? Now how the trees will provide seed and buds of days to be. And years that fade and flush again. Fade is tarnish and flush is brighten up again. So how with the passing years, how the trees will wither and then again they will rise again. He plants the glory of the plain. Now if I take you to a barren land, will you like the entire scenery? No, right? But what can make that barren land look beautiful? Those are the trees. So the trees beautify the plain. The trees provide the glory of the plain. The harvest of a coming age. Now harvest is reward and coming age obviously future days. Now what can be the harvest? What can be the reward for the coming ages, like for the future generation. Being a planter, what are you planting now? You will be planting trees. So what are these trees going to provide the future generations? These trees are going to provide fruits, they are going to provide flowers, more trees. In fact, the places that are barren, that are deserted, what will the trees provide? They will make it beautiful. The trees will provide fresh air, maybe a breathable atmosphere, isn't it, for the future generation? Now, this brings us to another point. Now, the planter who is planting a tree obviously is not going to reap the benefits immediately, because the sapling takes quite a lot of time to grow into a tree. So now the planter who plants a tree doesn't just think about himself, he is also thinking about the future days. This is something that we cannot ignore. So he plants the glory of the plain, he plants the forest's heritage, the harvest of a coming age. So what can be the forest's heritage? Now heritage is something that you pass on from one generation to the other. So what is a planter passing on from one generation to the other? It's the tree, isn't it? The tree that he plants. So that's why the trees will be the forest's heritage. The harvest of a coming age, the joy that unborn eyes shall see. These things he plants, so plants a tree. So now the future generations, now when they come into the world, when they see the beautiful world full of trees with beautiful things like fruits and flowers, a cleaner and greener environment, won't they be happy? Won't their eyes be filled with joy? So that is what the poet is trying to say. He is saying that the planter not just plants a tree, he plants so many things when he plants a tree. Okay, so unborn eyes here refers to the children, the future generation. Now let us quickly recap the figures of speech that we have in this particular stanza. So in stanza 2 we have one alliteration, which is fade and flush, and the second one is circumlocution. What is circumlocution? It is basically a roundabout way of saying something. So here, instead of saying unborn, like future generation, the poet says unborn eyes, and instead of saying future days, the poet says days to be. Okay, so did you understand? A roundabout way of saying something. So here we have an alliteration and we have circumlocution. So with this we are done with second stanza. We have come to the third and the final stanza. Now the last stanza also begins with the question, what does he plant who plants a tree? If you remember, this is a hyperphora. Now let us look at the answers that the poet is trying to give us. He plants in sap and leaf and wood, in love of home and loyalty, and far cast thought of civic good. His blessings on the neighborhood, who in the hollow of his hand holds all the growth of all our land. A nation's growth from sea to sea stirs in his heart who plants a tree. If you notice, the poet has become very philosophical in this last stanza. He clearly states that one who plants trees plants good values like love and loyalty. He is not talking about love for his own home and loyalty towards his own home. Rather, he is talking about a broader sense. He is saying that love for the nation and also loyalty towards the neighbors, the country, the nation, everyone. He says that trees are very, very important in the developmental process. If we really want to see our nation progressing, we will have to take care of Mother Earth. It isn't always about taking from earth. It is also about giving it back. And how can you do it? You by simply planting a tree, planting a sapling. Now let us go back to the second line. The poet says he plants in sap and leaf and wood. Sap means soft wood. Now if you carefully observe, sap refers to tree, leaf refers to tree, wood refers to tree. Then why didn't he directly write tree? Because he wanted to use a metonymy. Now here this is a metonymy. Sap and leaf and wood refer to one thing. They represent the tree. Instead of directly saying it tree, the poet uses this. So here we have a metonymy. And if you also observe, after sap there should have been a comma, right? But the poet uses and, sap and leaf and wood. So and is a conjunction. Now here we have another figure of speech. Now the poet uses a conjunction instead of a comma, and that is called polysyndeton. The poet says he plants in sap and leaf and wood in love of home and loyalty and far-cast thought of civic good, his blessings on the neighborhood. So the person who plants a tree also plants good values like love and loyalty, and also teaches everybody about the civic duties of a good citizen for the earth. The person who plants a tree also thinks about the welfare, the blessings on the neighborhood. Like I told you, he is not just thinking about himself or his own family. He's thinking about everybody else, the neighbors, the people living nearby, the city, the state, the country, the nation, everyone. So his blessings, his welfare on the neighborhood. Who in the hollow of his hand. Now imagine, children, that you are trying to plant a sapling. How will you hold the sapling? You can just try it yourself right now. See, you can hold it in your palms, isn't it? So when you hold the sapling in the palm, it fills that entire hollow that was created in your palm, isn't it? So now the poet says that you who is planting a tree, who is planting a sapling, has all the power. So you in the hollow of your hand hold all the growth of your land. You have the power to turn a barren land into a beautiful green space, isn't it? So you have the power to change, to bring development in the country, in the nation, because a tree, the nation's progress is dependent on the trees. A nation's growth from sea to sea, from one stretch to the other, stirs in his heart who plants a tree. So the person who plants a tree has so many things in his heart: feelings, dreams, and wishes. Now what are the feelings? The feelings are, he wants to do good, isn't it? He thinks about the welfare of others. What is the dream? The dream is to see his country to be a progressing one, isn't it? Now the wishes, he wishes that everybody else joins him in this initiative of planting a sapling and bringing a change. It is you who can bring a change. So this is what the poet is trying to say, that you who is the planter has all the power to bring in a change in the world. So do not let it go waste. Now let us move to the title. If you look at the title very beautifully captures the emotions of the poet. Now the title talks about is the heart of the tree. Now the heart here can be two things. One, the heart of the tree, which is so generous and so selfless that even if you cut it down, it keeps on benefiting you. And also the heart of the planter, isn't it? Now it is the heart of the planter who is so generous, who is so kind, that it goes on taking the initiative of bringing a change in others' lives. So when you think about the title, do not forget about these two important things. With this, we come to an end of the poem. Now let us quickly go through the literary devices. Now when we talk about the third stanza, we have polysyndeton, which is sap and leaf and wood, and also metonymy, which is also sap and leaf and wood. Well, if this lesson has helped you in any way, then please do like, share and subscribe. In case of any queries, you can definitely put your questions in the comment box. I will try to answer them. And if you want me to prepare another lesson on any topic of your choice, then do let me know. Thank you everyone. Take care. Stay safe.